It's good to be here. I wanted to run out like Stephen Colbert does on his show, but I work at the Defense Department, and they told me I can't do that. Anyway, I'm supposed to talk about social media platforms, and how it relates, as far as we're concerned, to strategic communication. But before I do that, I want to back up a little bit and talk about how I got here and how the Defense Department is using social media and how that came to be. When I arrived at the Defense Department last year, this is where I found social media and its use at the Defense Department. It was slightly antiquated, to say the least. There was nothing on our website, no links to social media sites on the website. And our website, the name of our website even didn't seem to make sense. It was called defenselink.gov. And only someone who knew about the website would go to it. It was not intuitive. It wasn't DoD.gov or Pentagon.gov or Defense.gov. It was defenselink.gov. And then soon after I arrived and found this, they decided to block all access to social media sites. So the Marine Corps announced they were going to do that, and even spoof sites took up the cause and said, on this one, Marine Corps tells maggot pukes to shut the hell up. Which, in fact, as most spoof sites are, there's always a grain of truth in them. So this is the message that we were sending with our social media policy at the time. Then the fight began. And I'm not sure which one I am here, but it took several months to come up with a new policy, not a new one, a policy at the Defense Department on how to use social media, whether we should have access to it, whether someone could do social media from their .mil, their work account, or if they had to do it from their .com, .net, or their personal account. In the end, sanity reigned, and the default is now on open for access to all social media sites. And some specific social media sites that have been passed and blocked been blocked in the past, MySpace and other ones, those blocks were lifted. So now it's completely open across the board. All the services, all the civilians, the 2.6 million people who make up the civilian and uniformed military people of the Defense Department can access and should be able to access all social media sites and internet-based capabilities from their work computers. And in short order, what that enabled us to do is to create things like this. And this will get me to strategic communication. This is the NATO training mission in Afghanistan website, ntm-a.com. And I'll get to that, why it's .com right in a minute. But everything is here on this site: YouTube, Flickr, Twitter. The Twitter feed is updated continuously, and this is all on the homepage for their website. Facebook, and this is, by the way, this is old. It's just a couple weeks old, so it looks different now because it's constantly in beta, constantly being updated with new the platforms as they come out. This, for me, is the best website that I've seen that's been done by one of the units out in the field using social media platforms. The thing that's really impressive about this is that it only costs $50 to create. And the reason it cost $50 was because they went to GoDaddy.com to register the domain name. These guys didn't ask permission. They didn't come back to me saying we wanted to create something. They just went and did it, which I think, and they briefed me afterwards, which, by the way, if you're in government, that's the way to do it if you want to get something done. And it's true. But that's actually what I told when I went to Afghanistan last year and I met with General McChrystal and with General Petraeus and the other commanders. I said, don't ask permission on this stuff. Go out and do it. Because I reminded them at the time there was no policy on social media. And for some in the military, that meant don't do anything. And I told them, no, that means you can do whatever you want. And so they were surprised by that. But General Caldwell, who's in charge of this mission, was not surprised, and he went and he just did it. I think it's amazing. They had a couple of warrant officers that worked for him. These are like E5s, E6s, junior enlisted men, not that junior, actually probably mid-grade, who knew something about websites, took off-the-shelf stuff, just Joomla, created the website. The middle part there in blue is in Dari and Pashto, and that's when we get to the strategic communication part. Social media is not the answer to everything, but if you're doing strategic communications, you need to reach all your audiences. So you can't block yourself from access to any audience. You want to use everything you have, which is why I'm so passionate about social media. It doesn't mean I believe social media is the one communication tool. It's not. We still need to do op-eds. We still need to talk to the New York Times. We still need people maybe like me to go on the Stephen Colbert report. But that was supposed to be a joke. But this site with the Dari and Pashto in the middle therefore reaches the intended audience. This audience, though, is not in Afghanistan. The audience for this is outside of Afghanistan. It's the Afghan diaspora that they wanted to reach. And this website does it. It does it in English, it does it in Pashto, it does it in Dari. It reaches a huge or a broad swath of the Afghan diaspora. And they track who comes to the website so they can make sure they're reaching the intended audience. It's only been up for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and it's doing an amazing job. This is the last slide, and it alludes to what I talked about just a moment ago. Asymmetric warfare needs asymmetric communication. In other words, we need to make sure our communication solution meets the challenge that it faces. In Afghanistan in particular, the number one way to communicate in Afghanistan is word of mouth. It's not the internet, it's not social media sites, it's not TV, it's not radio, it's word of mouth. That means we need to send people to villages. But there are also other people. There is radio there, so make sure we have people on radio. But make sure we have the right radio stations we're reaching out to. There is TV. Make sure we're getting people on all the TV stations. And don't forget the diaspora for Afghanistan, which is what the previous website highlighted. All of these methods out there, but in this case, social media, need to be used. Strategic communication is about using all the tools we have to explain and describe our policies and our actions, and also understanding that our policies and actions themselves communicate things, and we need to be aware of that as we do it. Even coming here, for me, is a strategic communication tool. Having that website itself is a public affairs, I think, success. It shows people that we're not intending to reach with that necessarily with that message. It shows people that we're trying to do our job right. We're trying to reach as broad an audience as possible to explain our policies to as many people as we can. And I think the Obama administration has done this certainly better than the previous administration. I was a career person in the previous administration and saw how it tried to do things, and it was not successful, I believe. Anyway, I want to leave the most of the time to answer questions on anything I've talked about here or any other question you may have about strategic communication or social media at the Defense Department, or if you guys want to start a campaign to get me on the Stephen Colbert Report, we can talk about that as well. And I think I'm supposed to go to the couch now and then answer questions. Whoa.
Thank you.
Deep couch.
Deep couch. So again, I'd like to thank our official crowdsourcing Q&A sponsor, Microsoft, and this town hall technology they've deployed. So I think what I'm going to do is ask a question of my own and ask a question off town hall that was ranked the highest. And meanwhile, if you have questions, please raise your hand, and we have someone with a microphone out in the audience, and we can take a few of your questions as well. So one thing I noticed today and yesterday was that we have a lot of people here at the conference from the intelligence community, and they were talking about Intel Link and all the different things they've been doing and evangelizing and developing over the years. And so the Department of Defense has much broader missions, all kinds of people doing all sorts of things. How much has what they've done in the intelligence realm guided or influenced what people have done elsewhere in the Department of Defense?
I think the work that they have done as far as creating secure platforms where information, you can have a one-stop shop for information, is located, has helped us try to collaborate and coordinate our communications much better. In the past, the most useful coordinating method was a phone call, a conference call between people, where you would talk about what you were supposed to say or do that day. Things are moving too fast for that to be true, and given the distances entailed and the times between us and Afghanistan, us and Iraq, or other places in the world, we need places like that, secure places where all the information is what we're saying about this issue, and things that can be updated. One of the things to remember with strategic communication is that it's not just about our policy and our message, but as we develop that, we need to make sure we take into account the perceptions and the views of the audiences we're trying to reach. And those updates can happen on these platforms, many of them started by the folks in the intelligence community.
Right. So I asked that partly because I was interested, but partly because we have a related question off Town Hall from Dave Haft. And Dave was a little more negative on this, and he says that there are too many defense platforms. We have Millbook and Defense Knowledge Online and Intellipedia and so on. And it's a development bonanza, and everyone but the user benefits. I'm paraphrasing Dave. So is there any plan to consolidate these efforts, or what is the future of developing social networks, either for public communication or for internal collaboration?
Well, I think you've heard some of the previous speakers talk about things like that, developing, law.gov, platforms like that, where one-stop shop for everything. But if past is prologue, what we'll do is just create another site for folks to go to. And I'm not sure that's a bad thing. Social media platforms or the things you're talking about interest people who have common interests. So people who want to go to those sites, who understand them, who share interest in that topic, go to those sites to get that information. And I don't see anything wrong with that. And I don't see anything wrong with creating social media sites or these information sharing sites that'll be short-lived. What's wrong with creating something that's only going to last 6 months or a year? I think that's okay.
Well, I don't think I spent 3 years working at the National Defense University, which is part of the Joint Chiefs, and I learned as I came into that how vast the Department of Defense is, and how many people. It's almost unfathomable how many employees and embedded contractors and war fighters there are with all these different missions. So that's an interesting perspective. Do we have a question from the audience? It's hard for us to see. Yes, we do in the back. Go for it. Where's the microphone? I think it's coming over to you right now.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed seeing the site you had. My name is Tim Skinner. I work with the Air Force. We run services for the Air Force JAG Corps. We have 50 or 60 applications we run for the Corps. Recently, we wanted to put up a legal assistance site, and we were busy, so we contracted to have it done. It was put on a .com site, and then we were contacted by Air Force Public Affairs that said we could not have a military site in the .com world. Someone called Defense Media found us, and so we said, okay, we moved it over to .mil. But the purpose of this was so retirees could take, and their families could contact this, active duty people who were off duty could more easily find an attorney to help them with their legal assistance stuff. Have you found any problem with your sites?
Boy, that's a loaded question. No, I haven't found any, but I do want sites to be on .mil. I think the credibility, the website that I just showed you up there on the NATO training mission, number one, is a NATO site, so it's technically not ours. Mm-hmm. But I would rather these sites, all of the DoD sites, be on a .gov, and that anyone doing like my Twitter sites on the DoD website, that's where it should be, because I work at the Defense Department, and therefore it has credibility that it wouldn't otherwise. Who cares what my personal thoughts are? Something are, but it does carry more weight if it's .mil. And if I'm looking for legal assistance and I'm retired Air Force, I think I'd rather go to a .mil legal assistance website than a .com, because that has the blessing of the Defense Department.
Right, and we've since moved it to .mil. It's just that for speed of development and fielding, we was contracted to have it put on .com. Well, thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. I think we have time for one more very quick question and answer if we have one out in the audience. Yes, up in the front there. She's coming up right behind you. Thank you.
Hi, so I run this little group called Drupal for Gov, and we're sort of open sourcey kind of folks.
Yep.
We do Joomla, Drupal,
Good.
all sorts of stuff. The problem is I have not one .mil on our group. There's about 100 different users on it. I got no one from the military, and I know you guys do a lot of open sourcey stuff. So how do I do a better job of getting to government employees in the military who are doing this stuff so that we can all collaborate online?
That's a great question. We have a new Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for New Media and Outreach. His name is Samrat Agarwal, and I'll give you his email address afterwards, and you can reach out to him. But I would love to see more collaboration like that, more open sourcing. I give the example of the NATO training mission in Afghanistan website. I put that out as an example for a reason, because it only cost $50 because it used open source software to do it. And we need more of that, not less.
Thank you so much. We have to move on to our next speaker. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here.
You bet.